Destination Crenshaw project and a resident relief fund for the residents of the corridor who have been most adversely affected by the prolonged construction and delays associated with this unfinished development. Destination Crenshaw was presented to this community as a transformational investment in Black culture, Black commerce, and the future of South Los Angeles. It has now been 6 years since the project broke ground and over 2 years since the promised completion date. Construction has stalled with no apparent end date in sight. The Crenshaw Corridor community embraced the vision of Destination Crenshaw, but the obstruction from the delayed construction has caused prolonged health and safety hazards, uncertainty, reduced customer access, declining revenues, disruptions, and mounting financial hardship. A broad spectrum of the community expressed their frustration over these delays and the impact they have had on the community at a standing room only July 30th town hall at Bethesda Temple Church, widely covered by the media, including ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. The burden of these unexplained delays should not rest on the shoulders of the Crenshaw Corridor community, which acted in good faith and supported this historic project. If the city fails to provide a complete and substantive response to this correspondence within 30 days of the date of this letter, the Crenshaw Corridor community reserves its right to pursue all of its rights and remedies. Sincerely, the Crenshaw Corridor community. To read the complete letter detailing all of our demands, go to our website at kbla1580.com. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Junior show. The Jesse Jackson Junior show. The Jesse Jackson Junior show. The Jesse Jackson Junior show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Thought-Provoking Thursday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It was Ralph David Abernathy who said that a hopeless people are in a serious struggle. In fact, he said a voteless people is a hopeless people. And he also said a non-producing people are also hopeless. We're going to have that conversation today with Atiba. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, NBCSL, Strategic Alliance Consultant, and President of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio. He most recently was a guest host on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced by Washington, D.C.'s political newspaper, The Hill. In 2020, Atiba released his first novel, Saving Grace, a political thriller. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Jesse, it's great to be with you. How are you doing?
Great. Pre-show, Atiba and I had a discussion about other forms of power that Americans possess besides voting. Atiba, I want to pitch that to you because in the final analysis, every form of power that we have informs our hope.
That's true. That's so true. You led that off really well. And, you know, one of those things is something that comes to mind is a quote from Malcolm X, who said, the battle today is not about black and white, it's about green. You know, we give our power away so much when we think about how we spend our dollars. And I don't know if we go back. I know we talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, but the Montgomery bus boycott didn't just work because people start putting their feet in in the seats. It was because they stopped putting their dimes and their nickels into the feeder to let them on to the boat. And when they started seeing that money not there, then they had to change course. And when you think about Dr. King yesterday, I was at the historic Hampton House, and it was very interesting to listen to Dr. King's words. The Hampton House, some people may remember that from the movie One Night in Miami, that the night that Muhammad Ali won the fight, the championship, won the belt. He was in Miami, and this hotel was the only one that's still standing here that was in the Green Book where we were allowed to stay. So he was able to fight at the convention center, just like Sam Cooke and others were able to perform on the Miami Strip, but they were not allowed to stay in the Miami hotels. And Dr. King came here and led a quest to get the minimum wages up. And part of how they did that in Chicago and in other places around the country was by withholding our dollars. And so when you ask me, what else do we have aside from the vote? What I think is the most powerful thing within a society like America, where capitalism is so strong, it is the power of our dollar.
Who could disagree with that? I mean, that's clear that economic leverage has played a role in bringing about swift justice for African Americans, people of color, and people who are genuinely fighting for human rights. That's what we're going to talk about on our show in this hour with Atiba, former Deputy Executive Director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, Strategic Alliance Consultant, and President of Party Politics US. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Thought Provoking Thursday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Look forward to being with you in just a moment.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The KBLA 1580 app puts the realest conversations right in your pocket. Stream live wherever you are in the world. No static. No searching the dial. A crystal clear connection 24/7, exactly when you want it. We recommend that you keep automatic updates enabled. Set it and forget it. So the app stays up to date with store requirements, bug fixes, and new features as we roll them out. Download the KBLA 1580 app today and stay plugged into the conversation everyone's having.
I love a girls' weekend, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin, thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Risa, a prescription-only injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy.
You can usually find me in the kitchen, but my active psoriatic arthritis can limit me at times. Now I'm still in the mix with Skyrizi to treat my joint symptoms.
With Skyrizi, most people with plaque psoriasis saw 90% clearer skin when measured from head to toe at 4 months.
Or if you're an adult with active psoriatic arthritis, Skyrizi helps you move with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
There's nothing like clearer skin.
There's nothing like better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Just in case you missed our Procrastination Crenshaw Town Hall.
We've had neighbors who have had the garbage truck potentially swipe their vehicles because if you park just a little bit too much into the street, you're at risk of getting it hit. If you park too much forward or back, you can't get in and out of your own driveway. And if you're late for a meeting or an appointment, pretty big deal. I really hope we never have a major emergency on this street because being able to get fire department in and out would be very difficult. Personally, while the project goes well beyond anything that my husband and I are facing personally with our home, we do have a very large project within our house. We are very blessed to be in it, but it needs a completely new foundation. It is currently slipping into Crenshaw right now, and we cannot do that work because a concrete truck can't come in to actually do the work. So it's a bit scary for us in that manner. But there have been, there are numerous things that I know we will hear about today that everybody is facing on a daily basis. We really look forward to hearing what everybody has been going through and then trying to find a way to get the construction complete and move forward.
Making sure they follow through. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
So we're in conversation with Atiba on Thought Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Atiba, welcome forward. Atiba. So the question that I have is about economic consumers and the power that we have economically with our dollars. And we can quantify this in terms of our economic struggles against the bus boycott and other moments where we have withdrawn our enthusiasm. I guess the question I would ask first, Atiba, is this. Oftentimes, the organization or the organizing of consumer boycotts begin with racial solidarity. Something happens to us, right? And we say no to Target. Something happens to us, and we say no to the bus company. And of course, that means some of us say no, not all of us say no. But we start with this issue that has happened to us that triggers the economic activity. And we encourage people of goodwill to join us, but that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it starts with us.
Yeah, Jesse, and this is not going to work for everybody. I guess I'm just more so of the mindset that as an American and as a human being, that sometimes I think we have to lead it, but it should not always have to be that it just comes from our community. Our community can lead it. I'm often reminding people, isn't it interesting that the movie The Black Panther made $1 billion? Isn't it interesting that the movie Michael made $1 billion? Neither movie, both movies had a director who was an American of African descent. Both movies had a predominantly American of African descent cast. I know Michael for sure had mostly executive producers that were American of African descent, and it's never been broadcast as a black film because it made money. And so when we think about ourselves in the equation, we spend as much money, and this is the case because I remember hearing Dr. King talk about it in the 60s. We spend as much money as many smaller countries or some countries in the world. We have power. Our power is in our money, and how we organize and how we work is contingent and actually a strong part of what is the gross domestic product of this country. And that often, I don't know if we're necessarily talking about or thinking about it in that sense, because we will first say, oh, our black dollars or our black businesses. And I'd like to say our businesses, and I like to say our dollars, without necessarily having to paint a picture to say what community. And so I'm saying it from this standpoint, that we have so much power when we recognize our human side of this, not necessarily our ethnic side to this.
So let me ask a different question.
You sure you want to do that?
Yeah, I sure do. Let's say we remove race from the equation.
Okay.
How do you organize an American boycott?
I think you do it. You just organize, Jesse. I think oftentimes we're looking at how, because it's tangible, because you can actually say, okay, this is what our dollars did. But I've been working on healthcare policy for 26 years. I sat at the table when we were coming up with ideas for Healthy People 2020. and it's 2026. And what we were talking back then was about health and how it was impacting people that look like us and how we're going to address it. And then COVID came, and then we're still talking about the same issues that we were talking about 20 years ago. The women's boycott was not done as a white woman boycott. It was not done as an African American woman boycott. It was a women's boycott. And some would say, oh, well, the identifier there was gender. Yes, it was. But I was a male, and I was there in support. And I saw the power of what they did in terms of how they organized. And so, you know, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that we've been doing the same thing over and over again for 200 plus years, for 100 plus years, for a year, and we're still expecting a different result, and we're not getting it. So I like to think, let's try. How do we try to do something else? The more and more that I'm looking at the history, the more and more that I'm not frustrated, I'm actually inspired, because I keep thinking, wow, those who came before us, if we look at the 60s, we look at the 70s, they accomplished so much with far fewer resources than we have at our disposal today.
So let me, for conversation purposes, say that I think that the two organizations or organized groups in the United States that have had the most effective boycotts have been African Americans, and we've asked people to join us in solidarity on the question of not only African American rights, but we boycott for everybody's rights, because once we get a right, everybody else gets a right.
Amen.
It doesn't usually happen the other way around. When we fight for it and it's determined legitimate and successful, everyone else benefits, not necessarily the other way around. And the other group is organized labor. And they may not call it a boycott. They may call it a picket. They may call it a walkout. They may call it a strike. And of course, that's a multiracial coalition. But then organized labor asks women, African Americans, and others to not cross their principled picket lines because of solidarity with living wages, benefits, health care, working conditions, shorter work days, more vacation time, or whatever the benefits are. But the impetus for organizing the boycott, we're talking about the other power that we have other than voting, is an organized group that is fighting for a human right or their human rights in a particular context, to which they appeal to the conscience of other people to move generally in their direction. Is that a reasonable understanding?
It's reasonable. Yeah, it's reasonable, and I understand. You know, it's you know, when you're organizing, it's easier to organize when there's something that's identifiable, but it's also easier to break us apart. You know, when you look at 1968 and what happened when Dr. King was assassinated and what happened within our communities. And I guess, you know, the overall thing, though, that maybe I'm trying to communicate and to get across, it's not that, oh, I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my history. I'm proud of my lineage. I'm proud that I know it. Like, and that's like, you know, one of the things that I hope that we can talk about in the future, Jesse, is knowing and identifying with our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, if they're still living, our great aunts, etc., about who we are. But part of the struggle that we have faced in this country for far too long is a history that was stripped of us. And that stripping of us from that was our ancestry and our link to Africa. So then we came here, and then we've been striving to be recognized as a man and a woman. And in the context of a nation, we've also been struggling to be identified simply as an American. But we continue to take that to say Black America, Hispanic America, Asian America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think from us, you hit the point. We as a culture, as a community, have been the ones who have fought for the rights that have been so long denied, and then others benefited from us. So, the meaningful conversation here to me is then how do we get over these humps? And to be honest, I don't believe that we get over any of them without some sort of economic demand. We've seen your father do it. We've seen Reverend Sharpton do it. We've seen others do it, but we don't get, and this is not, when we look at what happened when things were desegregated, we ran. So I mentioned the Hampton House before, which was an amazing hotel, which had valets and all the bells and whistles. Even Frank Sinatra would stay there because he didn't want to stay on the beach because Sammy Davis and others weren't allowed to stay there. So he said, I'm going to stay at the Hampton House. But when segregation, when things were lifted, then we stopped supporting our businesses. And there was something also that is in the history of that has hurt us from a business standpoint. So anyway, I'm saying these things in terms of from an economic standpoint, and I'm saying these things not questioning whether or not or how we identify. I'm saying these things in terms of how do we look at things, Jesse, in a way to say maybe we've been doing this not necessarily wrong, but there's a new playbook. So how do we play differently in order to be successful?
I check this out.
What does that mean?
Let me use this. Let me use this as an example. CQ Brown doesn't get much more American than CQ. I mean, this is a guy whose shoes were spit shined every day, stood erect at attention, 4 stars on both shoulders, every hair on his head. Well, CQ Brown, I don't think he had any hair on his head, but not a single hair anywhere misplaced.
Clean.
He can salute, sing the Star Spangled Banner, pledge allegiance to the flag. Couldn't be any more American than that. And CQ Brown got fired because an executive order essentially came down from Pete Hegseth that said no more black generals, no more blacks in line to be promoted, whether male or female. Joint Chief of Staff Chairman. How does this, I'm an American and I don't want to identify with that which I was directly attacked as, something I cannot change, my skin color, when the policy itself comes from on high, from someone unqualified to hold the position that offered the directive in the first place. And that does not exclude the $56.8 billion request that he just made for more missiles because the U.S. has run out of missiles and we don't have enough missiles to defend ourselves because we've expended a significant number of the magazine and our cache in Iran. And they did not notify the president of how low our missile stockpile was.
It still goes back to money, right?
Well, it goes back to, I think CQ Brown was more competent, would be more competent.
I agree. I believe that he would have been too. And I believe that there's a whole slew of people that are there that we could put forward that are better qualified. But it still always goes back to what we do with voting, right? It still will go back to what we do with our dollar. It also still goes back to what is our demand. So to march without a demand, and a demand is not strengthened without the power of withholding our dollar. So, I've been thinking about this lately, and I'll just throw this out. And I know I've mentioned this before on the show, that the power of us organizing to march to go vote, because I keep having this image of like what we saw in Selma. I keep having this image of the long lines of men and women who stood for days to vote in South Africa. And what I think about is, what if we just said, hey, now I'm not saying for a month. I'm not saying for a week. One day, let's just ask people in general, don't spend any money on gas. Don't spend any money on, just pick one thing and say, we're not going to spend money. Not African-American community, not Hispanic community, but instill and just put out a message to people. Don't spend any money today and see what the attention comes from. Because when people start this report of how much money didn't get spent on that day, they're going to start thinking, what will happen if we don't spend money tomorrow and the next day? But you got to start with one day first. And then people can then start to say, we have a demand, but we can't demand something. We can't expect to get something from marching if we don't have a demand, and we can't get the demand if we don't have any leverage. And our leverage is our dollar.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking about leverage and what power we as a people have other than voting. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's Afternoon Drive Time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is attacking Michigan Democratic Senate nominee Abdul El-Sayed, accusing him of opposing Israel and predicting he will lose in November.
Abdul El-Sayed, lovely gentleman, is a man of hate.
El-Sayed defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens in the Democratic primary and will face Trump-backed Republican Mike Rogers. Former President Barack Obama marked his 65th birthday this week with a round of golf on Martha's Vineyard. Obama played at the Vineyard Golf Club with Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry. Celtics star Jason Tatum also played at the club in a separate group. And rapper Drake reportedly gave away more than $1 million in cash and luxury gifts at his annual Strong Women, Stronger Drinks event in Toronto. Women received checks worth up to $100,000 along with vehicles, Birkin bags, and other high-end prizes. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers off day today comes at a good time. They need one. The Dodgers have lost 6 straight games after losing to the Cubs 7-6 Wednesday night in Chicago. The Cubs swept the 3-game series. The Dodgers are now 4-8 since their hard-headed trip to the White House on July 23rd to celebrate last year's World Series championship with Trump. A lot of folks, most of them Dodgers fans, told them not to go. Now look what's happening. 2 weeks ago, the Dodgers had the best record in Major League Baseball. Today, that distinction belongs to the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee is 2.5 games up on the Dodgers. The best record at the end of the regular season has some value. It gives a team home field advantage throughout the playoffs and World Series. We're 2 months away from the end of the regular season, but the Dodgers need to get things in order. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Number 14. That's where Talkers Magazine ranked Tavis Smiley on their heavy 100 list of the 100 most important talk radio hosts in America. Join Tavis weekdays, 9 a.m. to noon or 9 p.m. to midnight, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
What's good, KBLA delegation? I am Miles Lowe, and I'm excited to be joining the weekend lineup right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Join me every Saturday at 12 noon for the Do Better Show, where we get into the world of tech, AI, the creator economy, navigating your mental health through it all, and have conversations with founders to find out how real people are making real money right now. It's not a course, not a subscription. Classes in session every weekend, live on the air. So if you knew better, you do better, right? So let's make a better you. The Do Better Show, every Saturday, 12 noon, replaying again at 7 p.m. right here on Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We got a lot to talk about.
Ooh-wee, Fridays just got better. What's up? I'm Amanda Seals, and this is your invitation to come and sit with me. Yes, get seated as I do my thing on KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking noon to 2 p.m., then back again 4 to 6 p.m. Same day, same station. Bring your opinions because you know I'm going to have mine. Bring your questions because you know I got answers. And bring yourself because, baby, we want you to be authentic at all times. Fridays on KBLA Talk 1580. I'll be waiting. Join me.
Don't be anxious or confused about AI. Take control of your career when you get the skills to tackle real business problems and design specialized solutions. HR Dive reported that entry-level talent with applied AI credentials can receive up to a 25% salary boost. But where do you find training that you can trust? Future-proof your career and deliver more value with Humans Lead the Way AI. Their hybrid learning courses use practical definitions, real-world examples, and strategic insights to help you and your team understand AI with confidence. No magic, no hacks, no shortcuts. Just practical knowledge that helps you use AI more successfully. Don't wait. AI can never replace people who know how to use it well. Register for courses today at humansleadtheway.com. That's humansleadtheway.com.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt?
With Civic Tax Relief, they were able to save me upwards of $80,000 that I would have had to pay had I not reached out to them.
Get ready for a toll-free hotline. Take advantage of new IRS tax forgiveness programs that may protect you from IRS collection agencies.
I owe the IRS $37,000.
They have the power to garnish your wages, put liens on your property, and levy your bank account. Civic Tax Relief can help protect you from the IRS.
Civic Tax Relief basically represented me against the IRS. By the time everything was completed, I didn't owe the IRS anything.
Find out about the Fresh Start program that is now available through Civic Tax Relief. Civic Tax Relief's special tax hotline can help you discover all the relief programs available for free.
I would recommend anyone who has a tax problem to contact Civic Tax Relief.
Just call 800-285-3500, 800-285-3500. Don't wait. Call now. 800-285-3500, 800-285-3500.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Thought-Provoking Thursday, and one of our most thoughtful contributors is none other than Atiba, former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, Strategic Alliance Consultant, and President of Party Politics US. Atiba helps me sharpen my metal, and I certainly hope that I sharpen his. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
You most definitely do. Thank you, Jesse.
Atiba, let me ask you this question, because I think the most effective boycotts, if you will, or general strikes, if you will, in the last several years, but certainly in the last year, has been the No Kings March. It has delivered a universal message around the country and around the world about tyranny and the preservation of democracy. I believe that has been an effective message. But it took an impetus. The Supreme Court of the United States giving unprecedented power to the President of the United States, and then the behavior of the President with that new power to trigger the reaction from the people that led to No Kings. And one of the beautiful things about it is the march itself has evolved now to include Robinson versus Calais, the attack on women. I would suspect if there's another No Kings March, Mississippi and their behavior in terms of justice will be front and center. It evolves to incorporate the legitimate grievances of a people. I think before that, obviously during the COVID, was the reaction of the world to seeing Derek Chauvin's knee on the throat of George Floyd.
Amen.
And
Yes.
corporate America then turned and responded by saying, what? We haven't done enough. They began promoting black executives and appointing members to their board and building stores and making commitments to black scholarships and HBCUs because they concluded we've not been enough. We've been silent, or we have never seen or paid attention to the kind of behavior that average, ordinary citizens who are also our customers are actually going through in the parking lot of our stores in our communities that we claim to be a part of. That was George Floyd.
Yes.
So help me here. When these boycotts work, it's usually some kind of impetus that our producer said is seen on camera and evident, and then the reaction creates the organization.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And so what do we do with that? We have the resources available to us. What do we do with that? Part of our, I don't want to say our shortcoming, but part of what happens with us, myself included, is we have a short-term memory. So unless you said this last week, you kept talking about hope and that, what was it? Being disciplined, the need to be disciplined, right? So often we don't have the coaches and the people who are navigating us, either because, in my opinion, they're spending more time trying to be out front as opposed to doing what Nelson Mandela said, that leading people is like guiding sheep. If you are out front, when you get home, you can bet you won't have any sheep. What you have to do is guide from behind, okay? And part of that guiding is putting, in people's ear, like, we've got to keep sharing this. We've got to keep sharing this because we share. And then all of a sudden, the way the other side works is that then they do something else to distract us. And we have to figure out how we stay focused. I mean, if you think about voting rights and the work that it took to get voting rights bill passed, it took a great deal of hope that if we do these things, if we stand out here, if the people, as our producer said, see us get beat, then it will change the hearts of people. And so we've got to figure out, oftentimes we're talking about, well, they won't let us. Well, we have to keep being remindful. And one of the things I'd like to remind of is a clip of a man. His name was Booker Wright. And Mr. Wright was a waiter in Greenwood, Mississippi, who worked in a Only Them restaurant while also owning his own cafe in our community. And in 1965, he appeared in an NBC documentary about race in Mississippi. And I'd like for us to take a listen to that.
I spoke to him about that. He says, well, I have a bar. I could do it at my place. I don't know how I'd use the menu. It's far apart from what we wanted to do. But anyway, I said yes. So we went to his place the next day, and he put on his white apron, and he gave us a show that just rocked me.
Glad to see y'all. We don't have a written menu. I'll be glad to tell you what we're going to serve tonight. Everything we serve is a la carte. We have fresh shrimp cocktail, Lusco shrimp, fresh oyster on a half shell, baked oyster, oyster Rockefeller, oyster Almadine, stewed oyster, fried oyster, Spanish mackerel, Watson Solon steak, club steak, T-bone steak, porterhouse steak, ribeye steak, Lusco special steak, broiled mushroom, flavor of garlic, Italian spaghetti meatballs, soft shell crab, French fried onion, golden brown donut style. Best food in the world is served at Lusco.
But then something happened that was so unusual and so fantastic. He went on.
And you didn't know he was going to?
No, I never thought that he would do that, and yet I couldn't stop it. I didn't want to.
Now, that's what my customers, I say my customers, be expecting of me. When I come in, this way want me dressed. Booker, tell my people what you got. Some people are nice, some is not. Some call me Booker, some call me John, some call me Jim, some call me nigga. All of that hurt, but you have to smile. If you don't, what's wrong with you? Why are you not smiling? Get over there and get me so-and-so and so-and-so. There are some nice people. Don't talk to Booker like that. Oh, his name is Booker. Then I got some more people come in real nice. How you do, waiter? What's your name? Then I take care of some so good, and I keep that smile. I always learn to smile. The meaner the man be, the more you smile. Although you're crying on the inside. Or you wondering, what else can I do? Sometimes you tip you. Sometimes you say, I'm not going to tip that nigga. You don't look for no tip. Yes, sir. Thank you. What did you say? Come back, because I take care of you. Don't talk to him like that. That's a good nigga. That's my nigga. Oh, yes, sir, boss. I'm your nigga. I'm trying to make a living. Why? I got 3 children. I want them to get an education. I wasn't fortunate enough to get an education, but I want them to get it. And they are doing good. Night after night, I lay down and I dream about what I had to go through with. I don't want my children to have to go through with that. I want them to be able to get the job that they be qualified for. That's what I'm struggling for. I don't want this and I don't want that, but I just don't want my children to have to go through what I go through with. Hey, tell that nigga to hurry up with that coffee. I'm on my way. So that's what you have to go through with. But remember, you have to keep that smile.
I do want to comment on that once we come forward, because what I see in here is a survival technique in Jim Crow. And millions of our people in Jim Crow, to keep their jobs, had to have survival techniques. In spite of what you were called, in spite of being disrespected, you still had to. That does not make the disrespect right, but it does mean there are survival techniques. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. You know what? When we come forward, we're going to have a conversation about some of these survival techniques in Jim Crow, because many of us who are the only blacks working in our offices go through some form of some survival technique every single day. And from my perspective, it's horribly uncomfortable. But when you see it played back, it's an awful thing. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Just in case you missed our Procrastination Crenshaw Town Hall.
Been dealing with the lies of Crenshaw Destination. I live on this street. I remember the first day I came and there was no parking. And they said it'd be 6 months just to fix the wall. They started putting the big boulders down, and my life has changed ever since then. My kids haven't had graduation parties. They haven't had birthdays. My car's been in the shop multiple times. All my tires have been replaced multiple times, each one. I spent $1,000 on my front lawn for the 6 months. Keep replacing sprinkler. Now it's just dirt. You know, it's frustrating because I'm not a politician, but I know politics. You know, and I know the Smiley said the councilman, but I want to go above that. Karen, you want my vote? Make things happen. Talk is cheap. We can play these games. Period. Because you can't fix it, somebody will.
Not letting them get away with anything. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you feeling the heat? LADWP can help you stay cool this summer and save money. Through the Cool LA program, eligible customers can receive instant rebates of up to $275 on new portable, window, and wall air conditioners. Shop the Cool LA marketplace today and beat the heat and save. Learn more and apply at ladwp.com/cool-LA. That's ladwp.com/cool-LA.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. These are hard times for housing in America. Too many in our community face barriers to safe housing, behavioral health care, and affirming spaces for healing, particularly those impacted by poverty and stigma or incarceration. Rooted in South LA, Ahmad supports impacted communities through housing, wellness, and leadership development. Ahmad provides culturally responsive, peer-led support from transitional housing and mental health services to leadership development and youth empowerment. They offer safe, affirming houses for youth, transgender women, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Therapy and peer support with a focus on healing trauma in Black communities. HIV prevention and care, free testing, education, and wraparound services for whole person wellness. Standing in the gap with health, housing, and hope. Reach out to Ahmad Institute at 323-569-1610. That's 323-569-1610. Or visit amaad.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. The midterm election campaign season is here now. The 2028 presidential election is right around the corner. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. It's all in for 2026 and 2028. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's begin now. Are you looking for quality childcare? If you are, boy, do I have the place for you. Holy Trinity Child Care Center in the City of Champions is where your little ones become big thinkers. Music that makes their little heart shine, as well as dietitian-made meals every day. I guess it's safe to say your babies will be well-fed as well as well-led. We accept bundles of joy from 18 months to 5 years old. Subsidies are accepted, and we're just minutes from the legendary SoFi Stadium. Miss Shepard's team at 9300 Crenshaw Boulevard is now enrolling. All you got to do is call 323-757-4850 or visit HolyTrinityCCC.com. At Holy Trinity, we champion your child's heart, mind, and spirit every single day.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're in conversation with Atiba, former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. Hey, Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Good to be here, Jesse.
Hey, I'm glad you're here. So let me comment on that video that I just saw.
Can we do something though before we go to the next one?
Sure.
Because I think it'll round out the conversation. There's a second clip to that, almost kind of like the other side that I'd like if we have it.
Okay, so I've just been told by the producer that we don't have the clip available, so what I have to operate with for the next 9 minutes is what we do have available. I believe there are techniques that every black person during Jim Crow had to go through in order to survive. That is part of our resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And the absence of any video or clip today, to the contrary, I got to fix that. Because it doesn't matter if you are in the Jim Crow South or you're in a corporate boardroom and you're the only black woman or the black male there. There is a standard and a process that, unfortunately, the idea of being the first and the only creates that does go to the heart of our dignity. And I can't think of a more compelling case for the importance in that space and in those spaces in my lifetime than the role that Jesse Jackson played, the role that Al Sharpton plays, or even the role right now that Tavis Smiley is playing with the city council in Los Angeles about Destination Crenshaw, challenging every aspect of it, because if we don't challenge or agitate, change will not come. It doesn't happen on its own. Change is not self-executing. Atiba?
You know, and I think that I think they may have the clip, but I would say this. In order to win, what I've learned is that you have to understand the other persons or other groups that you're fighting, how they think, how they feel. And oftentimes when I'm seeing some of this, if there's anything, because it takes a lot for me to get frustrated, but if I get frustrated, it is, okay, we're only thinking about it from our perspective. It's one of the most amazing things about American history is that we often want to tell the story, because that's the way that those at the top have done it, to tell the story from their perspective when there are multiple perspectives and when we're looking at the same thing. And as it relates to what you said, I think you hit it on the nail, Jesse, in terms of the dignity, because that's what it really, for me, keeps boiling down to. It's our dignity and the dignity of Mr. Wright. The fact that he had an agenda and he did have to suck it up, and he sucked it up because he wanted to make sure that his next generation had a better life than his. And often what we are compounded with and confounded with today is, one, there is a lost sense of dignity that we don't talk about, but a lot of that is because we don't talk enough about our shared history so that we know exactly who we are and how strong we are and how smart we are and how often we have outwitted and outsmarted other people.
I appreciate that. I think that's, I think, again, that those are tools and tactics and techniques. And Dr. Howard Thurman, in his book, Jesus and the Disinherited, but also with Head and Heart, he talks about, and so did so did Samuel DeWitt Proctor in The Substance of Things Hoped For. He talked about survival techniques, the survival techniques of what it means to be Black in this context. That doesn't mean that that is the notebook on how to do it. The survival technique is the Green Book itself. We're not dealing with these people this week. We're going to drive down this road and stay at this hotel and swim in this swimming pool because we don't feel like being called nigga. We don't feel like being treated this way. We're not putting our families at risk. And so there are many African Americans and Hispanics and Latinos right now who are denying their surnames, who are not going to work, who are not taking their children to school, whose neighbors are taking their children to school. A parental responsibility they had before ICE came into our communities, but for fear that they may be separated from their children, they no longer perform that function, and caring neighbors do it for them. Those are survival techniques. That is not the standard order. And it is, from my perspective, it is not acceptable that we have to have a survival technique in a human liberty system under a constitution. That's my opinion.
It is. In 2008, scared the bejesus out of some people. And they organized and they were very focused on what it was that they wanted to achieve. And right now, they're getting the better of us because we took voting for granted, because we thought we had suddenly arrived, because we stopped telling our history. And then we get upset when they say, oh, they're going to take this away from us. They're going to do this. It is up to us to step up and to recognize that, yes, we held a great responsibility for the Mr. Rights in the world, for those who survived Jim Crow, for those who survived the Middle Passage and went through slavery. And if we don't tell our stories of the Robert Smalls, if we don't tell our stories of the Fannie Lou Hamers, then we lose track of who we are and how strong we are and how we have overcome and how we will overcome again.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. The resilience, the persistence of our people, in spite of it all, is exactly the context within which the Negro National Anthem, all three verses are written. Especially that verse about moving through the blood of the slaughtered. We have come over a way. That stuff right there. That narrative that binds what took place during those periods in our history with the modern narrative are important. Because I don't believe at Mar-a-Lago and some of these highfalutin places that are taking place by this administration, which is narrowly focused on white supremacy and taking away the progress that we've made, not on our own, but under the Constitution of the United States, that is deeply troubling and problematic for all of us.
Hey, Jesse.
Our conversations are the most interesting. Yes,
Jesse,
sir.
I just got to put my 2 cents in. White insecurity, because there's fragility at its best.
Absolutely. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We've been in conversations with Atiba. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, Johnny Mack will be right there with him in the Global Village. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is attacking Michigan Democratic Senate nominee Abdul El Sayed, accusing him of opposing Israel and predicting he will lose in November.
Abdul El Sayed, lovely gentleman. He's a man of hate.
El Sayed defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens in the Democratic primary and will face Trump-backed Republican Mike Rogers. Former President Barack Obama marked his 65th birthday this week with a round of golf on Martha's Vineyard. Obama played at the Vineyard Golf Club with Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry. Boston Celtics star Jason Tatum also played at the club in a separate group. And rapper Drake reportedly gave away more than $1 million in cash and luxury gifts at his annual Strong Women, Stronger Drinks event in Toronto. Women received checks worth up to $100,000 along with vehicles, Birkin bags, and other high-end prizes. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers off day today comes at a good time. They need one. The Dodgers have lost 6 straight games after losing to the Cubs 7-6 Wednesday night in Chicago. The Cubs swept the 3-game series. The Dodgers are now 4-8 since their hard-headed trip to the White House on July 23rd to celebrate last year's World Series championship with Trump. A lot of folks, most of them Dodgers fans, told them not to go. Now look what's happening. 2 weeks ago, the Dodgers had the best record in Major League Baseball. Today, that distinction belongs to the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee is 2.5 games up on the Dodgers. The best record at the end of the regular season has some value. It gives a team home field advantage throughout the playoffs and World Series. We're 2 months away from the end of the regular season, but the Dodgers need to get things in order. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. August 5, 2026. Dear LA City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson, on behalf of a coalition of businesses and residents that constitute the Crenshaw Corridor community, we write to request that a concrete timeline and resources for fully completing Destination Crenshaw within a year be developed and announced. A year is the outside time it should take, and we hope and expect that it can be finished considerably sooner. We also request the immediate establishment of a business interruption relief fund for the merchants, entrepreneurs, churches, and property owners who have borne the disproportionate economic burden of the prolonged delays associated with the Destination Crenshaw project, and a resident relief fund for the residents of the corridor who have been most adversely affected by the prolonged construction and delays associated with this unfinished development. Destination Crenshaw was presented to this community as a transformational investment in Black culture, Black commerce, and the future of South Los Angeles. It has now been 6 years since the project broke ground and over 2 years since the promised completion date. Construction has stalled with no apparent end date in sight. The Crenshaw Corridor community embraced the vision of Destination Crenshaw, but the obstruction from the delayed construction has caused prolonged health and safety hazards, uncertainty, reduced customer access, declining revenues, disruptions, and mounting financial hardship. A broad spectrum of the community expressed their frustration over these delays and the impact they have had on the community at a standing room only July 30th town hall at Bethesda Temple Church, widely covered by the media, including ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. The burden of these unexplained delays should not rest on the shoulders of the Crenshaw Corridor community, which acted in good faith and supported this historic project. If the city fails to provide a complete and substantive response to this correspondence within 30 days of the date of this letter, the Crenshaw Corridor community reserves its right to pursue all of its rights and remedies. Sincerely, the Crenshaw Corridor community. To read the complete letter detailing all of our demands, go to our website at kbla1580.com. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 morning.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are now in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack, the drum major and the unenforceable. Last week, Dr. Johnny Mack sat in the chair and taught us that violence has three faces: direct, structural, cultural, and that we have spent 60 years answering it with only one. Today we go further into the essay because there is a question underneath that framework that we did not get to, and it is the older question. It is the question of what is wrong with us. I heard Al Sharpton preach that sermon most recently at my father's funeral. 2 months before they killed him, Dr. King stood in the pulpit at Ebenezer and preached a sermon called The Drum Major Instinct. He said, there is something in every one of us that wants to be first, wants to lead the parade, wants the recognition, the applause, the name on the building. And he was not preaching at the Klan that morning. He was preaching at his own congregation. He was preaching at us and at himself. He was preaching to the selfie generation. He asked that if anybody was around when he came to the end of his days, they not mention his prizes, say he tried to be a drum major for justice. 2 months later, that recording was played at his funeral. Now Dr. Mack says something in this essay that I want you to hear. He sets King's drum major instinct alongside a Greek word the political scientists use called thymos, the craving for recognition, and its extreme form, megalothymia, the hunger to be recognized as superior, as privileged, as above. Thucydides called it and said the law of nature is to rule wherever you can. Hobbes saw it and said life is solitary, nasty, brutish, and short, all against all. Fukuyama says it's humanity's greatest challenge. King gave it a church name. He called it a drum major instinct. And he said the cure was not to kill the desire, but to harness it, to want to be first in service. Here is why that matters this afternoon. If the disease is the hunger to be above other people, then you begin to understand why Dr. King said what he said about our movement's greatest victory. In 1962, in his address on the ethical demands of integration, he drew a line that most America has never bothered to learn. He said, integration is the end. Desegregation is the only means available. Desegregation is what a court can order. You can litigate that. You can enforce that. You can send troops. Integration, what he called the equality of oneness, no court on earth can order. It requires what King called obedience to the unenforceable. And the nation that has spent 60 years congratulating itself on the means while never arriving at the end is a nation that mistook the courthouse for the kingdom. Which brings us back to April and to the Calais decision. Because when the Supreme Court raised the bar on Section 2 so high that Justice Kagan said it leaves the statute all but dead letter, what we lost was an enforceable mechanism. We lost a piece of the means. And the question I want to put to my guest is whether we ever built the end. Dr. King's three values, human worth, freedom, solidarity, or this essay renders them dignity, liberty, and solidarity, were never written into any statute. They cannot be. They are, in his phrase, ethical demands that we as a people owe each other when nobody is enforcing anything. I see that so relevant when I think about Tavis and this Destination Crenshaw, because you know what, LA? We have a black mayor. We have black city council persons. But the editorial that he delivers here at KBLA and the town hall meeting that we had the other day said something else. That we are not delivering for our people. So what do you do when the enforceable is dismantled and the unenforceable was never finished? That is the conversation I'm going to be having with Johnny Mack. Johnny holds a doctorate from George Mason University. His essay, A Metalogical of Nonviolence. He's a friend of this program, and he is one of the very few people who reads Dr. King as a builder rather than a memory. When we come forward in just a moment, Johnny Mack will be our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, a philosophical conversation with one of the best and brightest who's ever done it, Dr. Mack, a mentor, a friend, and an amazing person to learn and listen to. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The KBLA 1580 app puts the realest conversations right in your pocket. Stream live wherever you are in the world. No static. No searching the dial. A crystal clear connection 24/7, exactly when you want it. We recommend that you keep automatic updates enabled. Set it and forget it. So the app stays up to date with store requirements, bug fixes, and new features as we roll them out. Download the KBLA 1580 app today and stay plugged into the conversation everyone's having.
I love a girls' weekend, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin, thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Risa, a prescription-only injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy.
You can usually find me in the kitchen, but my active psoriatic arthritis can limit me at times. Now I'm still in the mix with Skyrizi to treat my joint symptoms.
With Skyrizi, most people with plaque psoriasis saw 90% clearer skin when measured from head to toe at 4 months.
Or if you're an adult with active psoriatic arthritis, Skyrizi helps you move with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
There's nothing like clearer skin.
There's nothing like better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi. Visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
You have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at kbla1580.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this hour, we are in the World House with Johnny Mack, social entrepreneur and scholar practitioner. Dr. Mack's research includes extensive study of Martin Luther King Jr.'s logic of nonviolence and the civil rights movement. Hi, Johnny. Welcome forward to the show.
Jesse, great to be here.
Johnny, I titled today's show Part 2, The Drum Major and the Unenforceable. You put King's drum major instinct next to Thucydides and Hobbes. Is the hunger to be above other people fixable, or is it only manageable? Johnny?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jesse. Yes. So the question, that's a question to me.
I apologize for not putting that question mark there.
Hey, Jesse, of course. Anything, if we have the will and the desire, we can do. The question is, do we have the will? Do we have the desire? Do we have the determination? What drives us? What are the underlying values, Jesse, that guide and direct the choices that we make? And really, that's what the metalogic of nonviolence is all about. And I believe what King's thought about nonviolence and restructuring the social edifice is all about.
So Johnny, Dr. King said, don't kill the desire, harness it towards service. Mm-hmm. And I guess I could put in this modern era, every social media influence in the desire to have more followers, more subscribers, to be AO1 number one on their show, to have the most podcasts and downloads. They take more selfies. Some people lead with their nose. Some people lead with their behind when they take their selfies. It wasn't made that way, but that's the way it kind of pans out. I'm wondering, Johnny, can you harness all of the energy to service and not to the need to be over other people?
Well, surely King was an espouser of doing good, of serving others, and service is important. We talked about this in our conversation last week. Service is key. It's essential. It's good for the soul. But it is not service alone. We cannot service our way to the promised land. And so I don't think that was King's argument when it comes to service. King also understood that we live in a very competitive society, a society driven by greed, a society driven by bigotry. And he understood that if we cannot harness and control that propensity toward greed and that propensity toward rivalry, then we couldn't really solve the dilemma that we find ourselves in an unjust and unpeaceful world. Making that change, once again, is not one about a day on where we paint fences and pick up trash, fix up playgrounds, but it's a 365-day commitment to creating a world of just and peaceful institutions and laws and policies and processes.
Johnny, let me ask a question, a definitional question, because I think our listeners need to understand it, because I've heard the discussion too much and the debate over most of my adult life too severely. Help us understand what Dr. King is saying here. Integration is the end. Desegregation is only the means. What is Dr. King trying to tell us?
It's a really important question, really important statement. So desegregation only addresses part of the problem. We can desegregate without integrating, without bringing us together. And so you sit in your corner of the room in a desegregated room, and I sit in my corner of a desegregated room, and we never come together in our world house, in this global house that King is challenging us all to create. So the question is, how do we move from merely desegregating the space, the opportunities, the benefits that our social organization provides, and integrate us as one human family, where we all participate with equal opportunity? That's the fundamental difference between the two. It's not enough to simply say, okay, you can come in and you can participate in this corner with these particular sets of rules and roles and benefits, while someone else gets an entirely different set of benefits and rules and roles. I hope that.
Let me try and press for even further definition. So if segregation is the law, by law, blacks have to sit in the balcony and white folks get to sit up front. If segregation by law, but segregation can also be voluntary.
That's
That
right.
is, I go to a predominantly white school and all the blacks sit at the same table. We've desegregated the institution, but when it comes time to lunchtime or dinner time in the school cafeteria, all of us make a cultural or a tribal move to sit around a table. That's voluntary because at least the state school is not locking you out of the educational institution. That's
Absolutely.
segregation by law, de facto, and de jure.
That's right.
Then there is desegregation, which I call the movement. That is, either we're going to boycott, we're going to picket to make the ideal of integration possible, but desegregation doesn't get us there. That's a movement, and the way in which we conduct the movement actually makes integration more possible, because if I desegregate violently with a gun or lynching somebody or hurting somebody, there are untold and unborn generations who are going to be the beneficiaries of those acts of violence and lack of trust. So the way in which we desegregate is a factor in overcoming legal and voluntary segregation. Every now and again, someone gets up from the black table in the lunchroom and goes and sits with some other folk.
Yeah.
Now, on this question, however, Johnny, of integration, that's in a different spiritual realm, where if I'm on a boat with you on July 4th, we are so good and so cool that everybody's going to make it home tonight. And there is no chance that there is a conspiracy or a tape or everybody lawyered up and everybody got quiet because this is my best friend. He's the only one who happens to be black who comes back deceased. Talk to me, Johnny.
Well, now, Jesse, you've laid out a number of very difficult, frankly, challenges. The means is found in the end. And so desegregating violently gives us a nonviolent end. Even attempting to so-called integrate violently as a means gives us a violent end. I think that the question here is, how do we recognize the humanity that we share in common, Jesse? That's the issue. How do we move away from what I've been calling, and I think King recognizes, as the bigotry that otherizes other people, that ostracizes other people, that makes them less than? Those are the challenges that we are confronted with. And those challenges, Jesse, are embedded they are embedded in the very woof and warp, the fabric of our social interactions. They're embedded in our culture. They're embedded in how we promote and communicate what is acceptable language, even in how we educate, how we divide between the left and the right. All of this has become part of our narrative of some are better than others. And we find this not only in terms of racial, but in terms of economic and cultural frameworks that constitute the world house.
You cite in the paper Claiborne Carson and an important question that is raised about nonviolence. Can nonviolence be more than a personal commitment? Can it be a form of routine political power? Johnny, answer Claiborne's question for us. Well, first of all, share with everyone who Claiborne Carson is.
Well, Claiborne Carson was, in my opinion, or is, in my opinion, the preeminent scholar on King's utterances, his writings, his speeches, what is commonly called the King Papers Project, which Mrs. Coretta Scott King asked Dr. Claiborne Carson to gather and to create the Institute of the Martin Luther King Nonviolent Institute at Stanford University. Claiborne Carson served in that role for 30 plus years and recently retired. He and I worked together at Stanford for a few years, and it's how we birthed this idea of the World House Project, and then it ultimately became an international organization. But King's point about nonviolence becoming institutional is key. It has to be more than a thought. It has to be more than a theory. It has to be more than a spiritual commitment. It has to be institutionalized in the very framework of how we organize societies. And that's Clay's question. Is that possible? Can nonviolence become part of the very fabric of our social order, of our laws, of our policies, of how we organize and educate? And the answer has to be yes. And Jesse, the reason it has to be yes is because violence has already been, or has already demonstrated that such values can be institutionalized. We should discuss that as well. If violence can be institutionalized, and scholars recognize such things as institutional racism, institutional violence, structural violence, if we can have institutional violence, institutional racism, institutional bigotry, why then can't we have institutional nonviolence?
Well, I'd like you to answer that question. Why can't we have institutional nonviolence?
Indeed, we can. That is the very point. And that's the very thing that King was calling for when he called for a revolution of values. King believed that if we can embrace violent values of bigotry and rivalry and greed or cupidity, we can also embrace nonviolent values of dignity and liberty and building a beloved community. It's a matter of
Johnny, let me say this. We are nonviolent. I'm going to be devil's advocate here. We've been nonviolent and are being nonviolent in the midst of some of the greatest challenges that our community and our country have ever faced. Now, there's many a folk who tired of being sick and tired, like me and Fannie Lou Hamer, on this question. Now, we're the only people behaving civilized in this environment. And okay, I got it. More than a tactic, a spirit, a flow, a swagger, all that is what it means to do right and hold true to our values. But Johnny, this ain't stopping the aggressive nature of this man right now at this hour and what he is doing deliberately to our history, to our culture, to our people, and to his approach. I used in the last hour with my brother Atiba, who says that, we need to be more American and less racial labels. I said, well, it doesn't get much more American than CQ Brown. I mean, this Negro has been spot shining and spit shining his shoes for 60 years. 4 stars on both shoulders. No, stands erect. Doesn't get much. Salutes. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It doesn't get much more American than CQ Brown. They fired him with a white dude who's less competent, Pete Hegseth. Come on now, Johnny. We're on the receiving end of overt actions that no matter how kind, how nonviolent, how structurally appropriate our approach to movement and human rights are, we are just in a system right now that seeks to deny us our existence. Johnny?
I see, Jesse, that we have to wrap to the break.
You see the time is running out, don't you, Johnny?
Yeah, I really want to respond to that, and the time is about to go.
Okay, we're going to do that.
On the other side.
We're going to do that right now on the other side. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're breaking it down with Johnny Mack. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The Senate has confirmed Dr. Erica Schwartz as the CDC's next director in a mostly party-line vote.
The nomination is confirmed.
The former Deputy Surgeon General and Coast Guard health official, who is Black, becomes the agency's first Senate-confirmed leader in nearly a year. Temporary protected status has officially expired for hundreds of thousands of Haitian immigrants following a federal judge's order. The change leaves those affected without legal protection in the United States. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin says they must self-deport or risk being arrested. And Morgan State University has been ranked the 4th best public HBCU in the nation by Forbes. The rankings consider graduation and retention rates, alumni earnings, and return on investment. The magazine also highlighted Morgan State's programs in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, journalism, and applied neuroscience. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers off day today comes at a good time. They need one. The Dodgers have lost 6 straight games after losing to the Cubs 7-6 Wednesday night in Chicago. The Cubs swept the 3-game series. The Dodgers are now 4-8 since their hard-headed trip to the White House on July 23rd to celebrate last year's World Series championship with Trump. A lot of folks, most of them Dodgers fans, told them not to go. Now look what's happening. 2 weeks ago, the Dodgers had the best record in Major League Baseball. Today, that distinction belongs to the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee is 2.5 games up on the Dodgers. The best record at the end of the regular season has some value. It gives a team home field advantage throughout the playoffs and World Series. We're 2 months away from the end of the regular season, but the Dodgers need to get things in order. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
It's the show everybody's talking about.
What's up, y'all? I'm Amanda Seals with a personal invitation for you to join me every Friday here on KBLA Talk 1580. Now, you get 2 chances to tap in, noon to 2 p.m., and again from 4 to 6 p.m. Real talk, no filter, just you and me on the highest of vibrations. Fridays only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt?
With Civic Tax Relief, they were able to save me upwards of $80,000 that I would have had to pay had I not reached out to them.
Get ready for a toll-free hotline. Take advantage of new IRS tax forgiveness programs that may protect you from IRS collection agencies.
I owe the IRS $37,000.
They have the power to garnish your wages, put liens on your property, and levy your bank account. Civic Tax Relief can help protect you from the IRS.
Civic Tax Relief basically represented me against the IRS. By the time everything was completed, I didn't know the IRS anything.
Find out about the Fresh Start program that is now available through Civic Tax Relief. Civic Tax Relief's special tax hotline can help you discover all the relief programs available for free.
I would recommend anyone who has a tax problem to contact Civic Tax Relief.
Just call 800-285-3500, 800-285-3500. Don't wait. Call now. 800-285-3500, 800-285-3500.
Just in case you missed our Procrastination Crenshaw Town Hall.
Literally right in front of our doorsteps the last 2 to 3 years, we have been interrupted by this nightmare of a project called Destination Crenshaw. The desire was partnership at the onset, but we've seen broken promise after broken promise. We've seen our parishioners impacted. We've seen our peers and our local neighbors impacted directly by this. We've seen the crippling of the Crenshaw economy as a result of this project starting and then ultimately walking away. And we're not going to just lay down. We're not going to just, amen, pretend like nothing's happening on our doorsteps. And tonight I want to get out of the way because I want to hear from you. I can stand there as a pastor and tell you how many times we've been interrupted from our flow of worship, how it's impacted our ability to provide services to our community, how the blight and how the construction derailment has hindered our ability to amply run our food pantry programs, to offer summer camp programs for our young people, how the construction impacts just our ability to be able to come to church in part. I can go on about how it's interrupted just our day-to-day operations and being able to accommodate the needs of our community.
Making sure they stick to the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk to me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Some of you may have asked yourself the question, what happened to Fat Meat Fridays? Well, it is now Sizzling Saturdays with Gina Towns on Reflectivity, Beyond Black and White, The Weekend Reset, inspiring stories of survival, chasing hope, facing life's challenges together, 5 and 11 EST, 4 and 10 CST, 2 and 8 PST PM. Congratulations to Gina Towns, the producer and creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, on getting her own show right here at KBLA Talk 1580. Johnny, just before the break, you had some thoughts, and I want you to have as much time as possible on this question of where we are in the context of, for example.
Well, Jesse, remember, I think we've talked about what nonviolence really is and maybe really isn't. And we talked about how nonviolence and violence both operate in time and they operate over time.
Yeah.
And we tend, Jesse, to focus on the end time right now. We tend to be in time right now people. And if it doesn't happen right now in this time, then we lose interest, we lose focus, we lose the discipline necessary to create the environment and the and the frameworks that are necessary to sustain a nonviolent society. You made the argument before the break that whomever we are in this context, are the most nonviolent people in the nation, maybe on earth. Is that really true? And are we really nonviolent, or do we simply talk nonviolence in time? Do we really understand what nonviolence is? What does nonviolence struggle look like over time? Is it an iterative process of marching and protesting and as John Lewis might say, getting into good trouble? Well, yes, it is that, Jesse, but it's not only that. The argument that we're making here, and I think King made and anticipates, is we have to understand how nonviolence operates over time. And the reason we have to understand that is those who foster violence have understood it, they've practiced it, and they've mastered it. What is it that they've understood? What is it that they've mastered? It is how to institutionalize violence over time to their benefit.
I'm going to think about that, Johnny, for a minute, because it doesn't come easy. In my mind, I'm saying to myself that I am bound by my Christian values, which I largely take to be, including turning the other cheek, right? And if I had to draw an X and Y axis and then draw a line through it, crossing both X and Y axis and shade it in the little triangle that's left, I'd say this is the space that I live in. And then if I drew another line through 2 or 3 of the axes, it might show other spaces that I could live in, but I can't live in them unless I take a leap of faith into those spaces, right? And then I can shade in those areas where I'm willing to risk. That would be defined by my life. Some folks never get out of just one line through the X and Y axis, and therefore it's all shaded in. But here you flip a question. You call it the reversal. Dunkelman asks in your piece what legislation can revive civil society. You flip it. You say, what kind of civil society revives legislation?
That's right.
Now, I'm wondering, in the 60s, if a robust civil society produced the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act, what's going to have to be rebuilt for us to produce the John Lewis Voting Rights Act?
What has to be, now, you just think about the way you framed the question. You said, if civil society built a framework, I'm paraphrasing now, that gave us the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, if civil society did that in the mid-20th century, what is it going to take in this century to get the John Lewis Act? It's going to take civil society. That raises the question, what happened between then and now to civil society? Where has civil society missed the mark? What preparation has civil society not taken? What structures, what institutional frameworks, what organizations, what processes was civil society engaged in the mid-20th century, relevant to that time, relevant to that technology, relevant to the media and economic frameworks available to them then, as opposed to what's available to us today? The argument here is civil society has not done its job and has actually given over to the private sector, we would argue, and government itself, what we as civil society ought to be doing. That's a major problem. It is we who must determine what the social edifice is, and not the market, and not government. That's Dunkelman's argument. The argument here under the metalogic of nonviolence is, no, we can't rely on a top-down change. That change always comes from the bottom up.
You say the direct violence went down while structural violence went up. So has America gotten less violent or just quieter about it?
It's a really good question. Again, you read the paper. So I think it's Piketty who writes the book about how violence has decreased, but he misses the point of what's happening in terms of direct versus indirect violence. That is, the direct physical violence versus the indirect institutional and structural violence. So as the social order has suppressed direct violence through policing and other forms of state control, follow me carefully, and that violence has decreased, other forms of violence institutionally have increased. Think about the prison industrial complex, for example. Think about, dare I say it, the acts that have now created a border patrol, the acts that have created new forms of policing that control how we interact and engage with each other, reducing physical violence, but increasing the structural and institutional violence. On the one hand, it makes the small privileged more comfortable, but making those less privileged in that larger segment of the society less comfortable.
Johnny Mack is one of the advisors of Reverend Al Sharpton, not only on domestic issues, but also on international issues. He was also very close, a confidant of my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and his opinion matters. It matters in these spaces because some of the men that we see in front of the microphone, some of the women that we see in front of the microphone are largely inspired by very deep and profound conversations that help direct where we're going and where we are. And I can only share with you all that I am greatly privileged and honored that Dr. Johnny Mack is a regular contributor to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show right here at KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580 with Johnny Mack when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight illnesses like pneumococcal pneumonia and RSV. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and can help protect you from getting really sick. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. See more at PfizerForAll.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer at a beverage manufacturing plant, he starts his day knowing every line is ready to run because Grainger delivers the industrial-grade products he needs to keep mixers, conveyors, and packaging equipment moving. With Grainger's vast selection of bearings, belts, and motors, he keeps operations running smoothly, so nothing grinds to a halt. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Roger and Tracy saved over $18,400. Cynthia was recovering from a family tragedy and saved over $10,300. If you are drowning in debt, then call Debt Blue. Debt Blue is a professional debt negotiation firm with over 20 years of experience helping people pay back a fraction of what they owe. Learn how to cut your debt up to half or maybe more. Be debt-free in 24 to 48 months, even with bad credit. With an A+ rating from the BBB, you can rest easy knowing Debt Blue is going to deliver guaranteed debt reduction. Debt Blue offers a success guarantee. You pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved. That's right. You save money or it's free. Call now for significant debt relief and a free consultation. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879. You don't have to declare bankruptcy. This program works if you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in debt. Call for your free consultation today. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879. KBLA
Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage career track jobs. The LA Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. And they are advocating for a fair deal for black workers in the new Los Angeles City Charter. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing, or learn about union apprenticeship programs and trade registries, please visit lablackworkercenter.org. That's lablackworkercenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis and build a more equitable Los Angeles. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. We'll be with Johnny in just 1 second. Sizzling Saturdays, Reflectivity Beyond Black and White with Gina Towns. Courageous testimonies, inspiring stories of survival. Chasing Hope, Facing Life's Challenges Together. 5 and 11 EST, 4 and 10 CST, and 2 and 8 PST PM this coming Saturday, the inauguration of Sizzlin' Saturday with Gina Towns. We're very grateful to the creator and the producer of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Gina, congratulations once again. She gives me the thumbs up. Johnny, welcome forward to the show.
Good to be here, Jesse.
Johnny, how can we support your work?
Well, Jesse, our website is the World House Project, theworldhouseproject.org. You can make a tax-deductible donation to our work. through that website.
Johnny, you say that direct violence went down while structural violence went up. So has America gotten violent or just quieter about it?
And Jesse, I think I attributed that to Thomas Piketty. It's actually Steven Pinker in his book, The Better Angels of Our Nature. And he talks about how violence has decreased or declined. But he fails to mention that is direct violence. And his focus is, to his credit, it's not on structural violence. He's talking about direct physical violence. But when one looks at structural violence, institutional violence, it has increased, as we find with 1/10% of people owning the majority of the income and wealth of our nation and around the globe. That compression or accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of the privileged few has grown even greater than was experienced more than a century ago, when we had the same growth in technology. I think that was called what was the age called? It'll come to me in a second, Jesse, but we are in a new age where new technologies are allowing the privileged few to accumulate and concentrate the wealth of the nation and creating that structural violence that King talked about, and we seek to address in our new approach, if I can call it that, of nonviolence in this century.
Johnny, I want to ask you this question, and then I have a thought of my own that I'd like to share. The human question. Where does an ordinary listener practice this? Where? Not how. Where do they practice it?
They practice it, Jesse, in their everyday, ordinary lives. They practice it individually, personally, with themselves. They practice it in their family life. They practice it in their community. They practice it in their church. They practice it on their job, and they practice it every time they go to the voting booth. It is not so much a way of life per se. That's not what we're arguing. It's a commitment to a fundamental framework of values. And those values are generative. That is, they generate action. It's a commitment to a fundamental set of values that one practices, again, with themselves. I respect my own personal dignity and worth, and I insist that others respect that dignity and worth and liberty. And I contribute to my community.
I've got 4 minutes, maybe 3.5, to break down everything that I've heard and how I define it from my teacher and mentor, Johnny Mack. Chapter 7 of his book.
That's too much.
Substance of Things Hoped For. Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor titles the paragraph or titles the chapter America's Moral Parenthesis. America's moral parenthesis refers to a temporary period in which the United States is seen to suspend, compromise, or bypass its fundamental democratic values and ethical standards. The phrase is most frequently used to critique moments when political, economic, or military actions conflict with America's historical identity as a champion of global human rights and global liberty. This is what a moral parenthesis is. When the values we say we hold get set aside, here's the parenthesis, bracketed off, put on pause, while we tell ourselves it's temporary. And here's the way out. Samuel DeWitt Proctor believed equality was still possible, but he believed something else first had to happen. We always, every single day in our lives, as Dr. Mack just said, we have to identify and define what he called the optimum human condition with all of the dignity, the full dignity that it absolutely requires for every person, in plain terms, and then call everyone, not just some of us, to embrace it. Identify first the optimum human condition. We want to live together at peace, in harmony, under a standard and a set of rules that are agreed to by everybody. The optimum human condition, equality for all, an opportunity for all, a chance to provide for our families for all, for our children to do better than we did in our own lifetimes. An improvement, not going backwards, but going forwards, and going forward together. How do we get there? First, by recognizing that equality is possible. 2, by identifying in every circumstance in life, from the classroom to the elevator to the taxi cab to the Uber, the optimum human condition that we have to live together. And then ultimately, in the final analysis, KBLA Talk 1580 on the 405, the 101, the 5, the 10, the 118, and the 10, we have to call everyone to embrace it. And that requires courage. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Mack, thank you for joining me.
Good to be here, Jesse. Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing you next week on KBLA. More when we come forward.
KBLA East Santa Monica.
I'm Amber